Welcome to Building While Flying, a Sasha Group podcast where we interview business leaders about how they tackle challenges, stay resilient, and navigate ever-changing skies.
Welcome back to another episode of Building While Flying. On this week's episode, Mickey speaks with Adam Mizel and Chris Swanson, two of the founders of Us United. They're working to become the voice of unity and spark action in the process. Ken, one of the founders, couldn't make the call. Mickey, talk to us a little bit about kind of how we even got to talking to these two guys, but what's behind the scenes of how they came together, and it's such a triangle. Ken is such a big part of this group and who he is.
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? Because between Adam, Chris, and Ken, they're all, super experienced. They all have like have had careers of their own, and the three of them kind of coming together to form this nonprofit, Us United. I mean, Ken is the free hugs guy, right? Like, so he's someone who has built a personal brand and a speaking career, and around his movement that he kind of created around free hugs. And so, I mean, I think most everyone listening to this probably has seen a clip or a video on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or something like that or TikTok of the free hug guy. And even the background of how his story started, where it was at the Boston Marathon the year after the bombing had happened. So I think this was like 2012, 11 or 12. And how that even got going was he felt like, and as I was doing my prep, I was watching some of his videos and things like that. I mean, he felt like he wanted to support the marathon runners who were back out there. And, a year later, and, at a time when, there was concern that should this, how are we going to keep this event safe and things like that. And so he was like, what can I do to kind of help? And it is, I think that's such an important part of both Ken and Chris's and Adam's story, is like individuals saying, what's something I can do that's actually tangible to help? And so his tangible thing was he set up a road sign. He went along the Boston Marathon, and he set up a tripod and a camera to record what he was doing. And he just held up a sign that said free hugs. And as runners were going by, at first people were just like, wait, what is that? And, just kept going. And then, but the first person that went and gave him a hug, and then more and more people as they were running by started giving him hugs. And he just has this amazing montage of him giving hugs to marathon runners. And then that went viral, like pretty immediately on YouTube, and it created, and then he is kind of, and then he took that to the level of, if there's a protest happening, or if there's a tense situation, like, how can he help bring and be kind of a bridge for the people that are hurting on, and how can he kind of help make a difference and be a little bit of a healer. And so, he's had multiple stories of him being on the front lines of protests and helping to kind of bring communities together and help kind of each side kind of hear from one another and things like that. And a lot of it is around like police, brutality and police and all those types of things. So for him to be connected with Chris, who Chris also had his own viral moment of going viral in Flint, Michigan, for being the sheriff, the law enforcement person who listened to the protesters and took action. And, it was walk with us, right? And so he walked with the people of Flint, Michigan as they were protesting, after the murder of George Floyd. And so, it's a kind of awesome to me that these two bridge builders that have come from maybe different, that have found each other. And that's what's, I think, really special. And then, you add Adam into that, who's kind of more of the entrepreneur business background, but had a similar moment where he kind of hit it. He's, what can I do? And they're trying to take, and that was the core of the conversation, is how do you take something as intangible as unity, which is something I think we can all agree we're for unity, but how do you turn that into like practical, tangible things that people can go support and do to actually build unity?
I think it's really important that we're giving people a roadmap instead of, recognizing that this is a problem, we need to solve it. And not everyone even feels that way, right. Adam, the three of them are doing something, and whatever that roadmap is, it's going to give people something to follow, and hopefully it goes as viral as two out of the three of them have already done.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's not keep our listeners waiting any longer. Let's dive into Mickey's episode with Adam and Chris.
Awesome. Chris, Adam, thank you so much for joining us on Building While Flying today.
Thanks for having us.
Glad to be here from Flint, Michigan.
Flint, Michigan in the house. I love it. Chris Swanson and Adam Mizel are co-founders and partners in Us United, a nonprofit started in 2020 to help people create unity, listen, join conversations, and have a national platform for kind of changing the conversation around civil justice in America. So Chris and Adam, you both have kind of super unique backgrounds, and then your third co-founder, Ken, does as well, that you bring to the organization. So could we start by maybe having each of you introduce a little bit about yourself and the role you play at Us United?
Sure, I'll jump in and then hand the baton to Chris. And I think you hit on it. All three of us are very, very different, but complementary. And that's, I think, one of the keys to success in any organization you're building, is that you have complementary skill sets and also people who genuinely like each other. I mean, we have become really, really good friends, both because of the work we're doing, but also because we enjoy each other's company. So I think those are the things. So me, I would say in some ways the least important. I'm the behind the scenes entrepreneur, business builder, sort of day to day, trying to build and make the business happen and run, that really leans and capitalizes on the really important work that Chris and Ken do every day out there, literally risking their lives, and certainly in the middle of trying to teach and bring unity as symbols and as examples to communities around them. So that's a little bit me. Ken, 2 seconds, is because he couldn't be here today, is, he's been an activist since 2013 with the Free Hugs Project. Really started with the idea of, how can I break down barriers and how can I break down walls? And he's like, a very simple idea. If you give people a hug, they instantly relax and open up. And that simple insight he's taken, and there's iconic imagery of Ken between protesters and police trying to keep peace, and doing it with conversation with hugs, the work he does speaking, the work, all of his video and social media work. And it's just blossomed because, as often the case, the simplest ideas are the best ones. And that breaking down barriers is a big part of what we're trying to do to create unity. And so where he started in that message is spot on. And so with that, I'll hand it over to Chris.
So, Mickey, Adam is really the Wizard of Oz, and he's behind the scenes with his curtain. I mean, that's the image that Adam is. He's like the Colonel to Elvis. That's what's happening. So he sells himself short all the time. But I'm going to tell you that this group is no different than any other group of people that get together who have a circle of influence, who have a talent, but a heart to change. That's the thing, is there's a lot of people that are in the business world that are successful that you deal with every day from this podcast that understand. You can talk about it, you can post about it, but the only people that are going to succeed are the ones that do something about it. And how does that start? Because unity has to come from the most unlikely people that don't look the same, they believe the same. Unity heals wounds, it opens doors, it builds relationships, and that's why Us United was formed out of some very hard days. And this country was wounded, but I made a promise on a light pole at Target on May 30th, 2020. I'm going to do my part to be a change agent, and I need 1,000 more of you, Mickey.
Amazing. And Chris, seeing, I guess, how both you and Ken, as Adam kind of touched on, have kind of become national figures really based on, you guys standing up in a moment in time and setting that example. I watched the original Free Hugs video from the Boston Marathon last night and was brought to tears. I watched your, the George Floyd protest that you did in Flint, Michigan, where you walked with the protesters, it was super inspiring. And so I'd love for you maybe to talk a little bit more about, we've got an internet sensation in Ken, we've got the Wizard of Oz, serial entrepreneur with a calling in Adam, and we've got probably, Chris, you've probably seen in your line of work as a sheriff and a police officer, you've probably seen everything in life. So I'm curious, could you talk more about kind of the catalyst that brought the three of you guys together? I know it was a hard time in this country's history, but it's also, I think, if it brings forth things like Us United, we can take it as a positive.
So, Adam, if I may, I will tell you, my whole life, I've been answering 911 calls for help. People's lives have been in peril. People are scared to death. And as a public servant, not only am I a police officer, but I've been a licensed paramedic since I was 20. So I've seen people take their last breath, and I've seen babies born, and I've seen people cry for help. And all those have a very similar subject matter, and that is those closest to any problem have the answer. So instead of barking about it, instead of screaming about it, you are closest to the problem, so you now have an answer. It's the small percentage of people that step out of their comfort zone to say, hey, not only do I have an obligation, but I think I got an answer. And so when you do that, you find yourself finding people like Ken's, who I never knew existed before May 30th. Ken was introduced to Adam because of a connection they have in California. Ken introduced me to Adam in November of 2020, and that's what started this whole movement. And so I think the Us United and how we got together is a perfect template of how this us group, this unity message, can work for anybody in the world. And you know, in business, don't create a product that can help everybody because it's too broad. You know, land the plane, be specific. No, unity is a global issue, and we can fix it by taking what we've done and what others have done and unifying groups across the world.
Chris and Ken have dedicated their lives to unity. I'm a newbie in that sense. I think part of me always knew I needed to find a way to give back and help beyond just being in the business world and try to change the world a little bit. And so that led me there. But part of, for me, in May of 2020, when I sort of came in this direction, was after George Floyd was killed, I really stepped back and I got so frustrated to saying, what can I do? Like I make donations, I can do that. And that's important, and still doing that. But I said, what can I do with my time? How can I make a difference? And I had no idea. And I asked a lot of diverse people, and nobody had an answer. And so to what Chris kind of said, the business person in my mind said, wow, how can no one know what to do? And if no one knows what to do, how the hell are we going to get unity to happen? So I said, I got to figure out a way to create something that answers that question. So when Mickey says, hey, I believe in this, I want to create unity, and we say, this is what you can do, Mickey. And we'll get to that in this conversation, but that was for me that moment of that's where I can get involved and make a difference.
Amazing. Awesome. And we'll certainly dive into what's that action folks can take. But I'd love for even as you to take a little bit of step back and talk about like the biggest picture of what you want for Us United. You guys are in the early stages. You talked about this is, 2020 was when you guys really started to get together and build Us United as a platform, as a brand, as a vehicle for change. What does success look like for the organization? What are you striving towards?
Chris, let me start and then please jump in. I think there are three simple things that we would be success. First of all, we're going to make unity a first thought and not an afterthought, because that's what it is today. People like instantly go to their corners, and we want them to say, no, you know what? The first thought is, how do I find unity? How do I come together? So make it a first thought. And we're going to then build a brand and a voice for unity that people can rally behind, because it's this big concept, but you need something to rally behind, to example, to voice, to give you a way to make it front and center. So first thought, build a brand. And then the third piece is, I think you'll see us at some point, we'll have an established network of Us United chapters in cities and communities across the country. So at a grassroots level, we can take the examples we're setting, and every city and town, whether we start a chapter or we partner with people who are already there, it's going to be all kinds of mixtures. But say, this is how you bring unity every day in your community by getting all these different groups together. And we have service events and our holiday spectaculars and podcasts and all kinds of things. And if we do that, unity will become the direction people move to right away versus to division. And so to me, those are, I think, what we'll look at success.
So Mickey, I think your listening audience can relate to branding. And just because I work for the government and I'm elected by the people, and I serve the people, I'm also a business owner, and I've been a business owner my whole life. So I understand the power of, if you've got something good, brand it, scale it, and make it profitable. And so our message is not a physical product. It's a feeling, it's a philosophy, it's an ideology. And if we've experienced anything these last 2 years between COVID and mask and vaccines and politics and wars and economy, it's division. And I am a peacekeeper. I'm a sword bearer as a political law enforcement official. I'm a white guy trying to fix a race relation problem, and we're doing it. And so when you take Flint, Michigan, And the reason that it works so well is because we've beta tested it here in Flint. We've gone into the streets of people that are not used to doing that. We've started, the 30 for Us project, where you sit down for 30 minutes once a week, twice a month, and you sit down with somebody to have coffee at Starbucks. You ask them, hey, listen, I'm not Jewish, but tell me what the celebration of Purim is. Listen, I'm not Muslim, but what does a Muslim mosque do? What do you guys do there? I'm not a business owner. I'm not Mexican. I'm not white. Like, let's have conversations instead of having the idea of what we believe something to be, instead of just trying to bring people together. And we are not trying to get robots. We're trying to get people to respect others that differ, but also bring people together. So when you talk about branding, imagine this, Mickey. Imagine another police conflict, and a protester has somebody who's looking at a police officer, and they're wearing the same Us United band color. They're doing the same logo. Yep. They're like, wait a second, I know the heart. We see it all the time with brand. You can show me a swoosh, and I know that's Nike. You can show me a color, and I'll know, oh, that's the New Orleans Saints. Like, we already are used to that. So we are literally branding unity, and it's going to bring people together and stop tearing them apart.
I love that. I mean, obviously, as the brand marketer and brand builder in me, like the fact that you guys are taking this challenge head on and saying branding is the answer, I get super excited about it. But you also touched on there, I think one of the challenges is that when you see that swoosh, I know that you're talking about an apparel company, and you're talking about some awesome shoes or a dry fit shirt or something like that. When you're taking something that's intangible like unity, and you've already started to talk about some of the conversations and events and things that you're going to be doing in communities, but I think for me, that is what I think is such an interesting challenge, is you guys are taking something that everyone is going to nod along to and say, yep, I'm interested in that, or like, I believe in that, but at the end of the day, it's an intangible thing, and you guys want to build the brand around it. So how does that inform kind of the decisions you make, or the lens that you guys are looking at building out this platform?
I think you're spot on. And that's why building a brand is so important. We have to take a concept that's intangible and make it tangible, make it something you can get behind and that you can follow. And you can say, as Chris's example, in the extreme, you had an officer and a protester, and they both saw that they were wearing the brand of unity, right? We will have the uniform of unity, whether it be a t-shirt you could be wearing, it could be a wristband. Think like the Livestrong bracelet 15 years ago at Lance Armstrong's heyday, where everybody wore that, and you knew what that meant, right? That's what we need to do here with Unity, and we're working with partners to build out that sort of uniform of unity. And so you start to see that in the community and say, hey, that's cool. Unity's cool. That shirt's cool. That hat's cool. That bracelet's cool. I want to wear it because I like it and because I like the message it sends. And then you start to change behavior. You start saying, hey, that's someone who believes in unity too, right? That person, look at that. Now it's not this amorphous, I don't know, if someone talks about unity, what is it? Now I see thousands and thousands of people wearing unity, and you say, wait a minute, this is real. And I can do this, and I can join that. I mean, I wear New York Yankees hats. I'm a big Yankee baseball fan. I mean, Chris is going to be a Tigers fan. We went to a game together. But we like to wear symbols of what we believe in, and I think people want to wear a symbol of unity. And that's an important part of how we make that intangible tangible.
So, Mickey, since you're a brand expert and you understand marketing, you and I both know where we were when Steve Jobs released the iPod. Like, that doesn't even make sense. 5,000 songs on this little thing. When Elon released Tesla Motors, like, we can all see that day when, TikTok's going to take over Instagram. No way. Boom. So any great idea, any great movement, it doesn't matter. It all starts with a guy like Mickey using his podcast, talking to people, Chris, Adam, Ken, Jamie. I mean, we know it's a big lift, but what's the better alternative? More riots? More hate? More murders? Like, I've been working in this job for 30 years. Like, I've seen enough bloodshed. I've seen enough division, I'm proud to be an elected official. I'm proud to be a white police officer. I'm proud to be but that doesn't mean that I can't understand the people that don't look like me or even believe in what I do. Let's talk about it. I mean, we did 40 protests that summer, 40 protests. Nobody got arrested. Nobody broke a piece of glass. Nobody snapped the board. That one day was just the first of 40. I had people sitting there with their cars all decked out, mother effing the police. I'm like, hey, thanks for coming. Let me know if I can do anything for you. I appreciate you. We're getting better for this, and we have. So it doesn't matter if you're a police officer, if you're a brand influencer, anybody listen right now. If your heart desires better and it doesn't want division, the only logical option is unity.
I love how you both have kind of teed this up where we're going to build the tangible brand. So you've got apparel, you've got the bracelets, you've got the things that can signal, hey, this is important to me. I'm expressing who I am as taking part of this. But then you're also backing it up with the the conversations, the in real world things that are actually making and impacting change. And I think it has to be both of those things, right? Like if this was just an apparel brand, like it would fall short. If it was just the in-person events and bringing people together to have conversations, it wouldn't, maybe without the branding side, wouldn't have the potential for reach and opportunity and storytelling that I think you guys can be tapping into. And I think that's kind of where I want to ask next is, Chris, you and Ken have the Black and Blue podcast. You have both kind of been, thrust into the spotlight with viral videos that have gone, across social media. What's the role that you guys are thinking about for content, for storytelling, for your podcast, for the speaking engagements that you guys do? How are you thinking about building the Us United brand and using social and digital content to kind of get that story out there?
So I repeat history. I mean, why when I say I have a dream, do you immediately know who said it, where they said it, and why they said it? Because over time, more people believed in the movement. So in August of 1963, when he made those statements, Dr. King said, I believe in something. Well, that's no different than anything that I said when I said, let's walk. Or Ken said, free hugs. So there's 1,000 Chris's. That's why I said, Chris and Ken and Mickey and Adam, we're not going to be the single change agents in the world. But there are so many of us that have the ability. All we need to do is ignite the cause. And that's how movements start. So the reason we're on this podcast is because it's going to reach into someone's heart who's needed a nudge, who has needed that little push. And maybe they're an athlete. Maybe they're in movies. Maybe they are in apparel. Maybe they're in a position that we don't even know. Maybe they're in the legal community or the education. But I think it's important that those that are in the baseline, there's nothing like this. We've talked to people from brand marketings all over on different brands. And they're like, there is no brand of unity. There's brand of divisions. There's people out there that are very divisive. But who is there branding unity? And this is why we believe in this. And when you put action behind it, when you do events, we're using our community here in Flint because it's just a great platform to be used. And so when we give back to the community, days of service, Christmas spectacular, we do Christmas and pizza extravaganzas when we're serving the community. When people see that you do service without any strings attached, they start to believe. And so 1 goes to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8. Next thing you know, you're a global movement. And that's what we're doing.
So building on your question and Chris's answer, part of what the podcast and all of the speaking and all the social media, we need to help change the tone of media in general. We all watch the news, and generally speaking, it's all divisive because that's to some degree what sells. There's just like there's nobody wearing this brand of unity. There's very few people who get on any news station or any form of media and talk about unity. They're talking about why they disagree, why this isn't right, why this should be different, why this person's wrong. Well, Chris and Ken are not doing that. They're out there being the voices of, hey, I hear you. Let me listen. Let's think about how we can come together. Let me understand better. Let's figure out how we solve the problem together, not how we just yell at each other. So part of what our media is doing is trying to get picked up in part of more and more of the traditional media to say there's another path, right? And this is what it looks like. Not just this is what it looks like. This is how we did it in Flint. This is how we're doing it in Los Angeles, or how we're going to do it in New York, or you pick whatever it may be. And let's talk about it from that perspective. And so it's really important to change hearts and minds by giving people that different approach and leading it by example.
Hey, Mickey, you want to hear a crazy cool story that happened today? All right.
Yes.
So I have, as a sheriff, I have business of the office of sheriff that has to go through a county board of commissioners. And they're elected like any other county commissioners in the country. And so once a week or more, they have meetings, and there's general board meetings. And this morning at 0900 Eastern Standard Time was one of the meetings that I attended. And it was very controversial in the beginning because of another issue that was brewing. And it was completely independent of me, but I was sitting in the crowd. I'm in full uniform today. And as I was sitting in the back row in the corner, and they had public comment over and over, key people went up there, and they were very passionate. They were very outspoken as to what they wanted. But it was a topic that had nothing to do with me. Norm goes up there about 20 minutes after people started public comment. They have 2 minutes to talk. As Norm walks up there, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, I just got to say that we have a sheriff that 2 years ago answered the people and with 2 words changed the way people view this community. And he said, let's walk. And our sheriff understands unity. Now, Mickey, I've never met this guy. I didn't even know it was coming. It was in public comment. It was crazy. And he starts to tell the story that him and his wife, who are in their late 60s, have been watching what we're doing in this community. He gets to the point, he said, and I got to tell you, we stumbled across a Black and Blue podcast that the sheriff and a friend of his is doing. And he's talking about issues that my wife and I have always wanted to talk about. And I really encourage you, because we binge watch that podcast. It really works. Race relations and social justice is possible. So just take it from us. Dude, I got goosebumps. I'm like, this is it. Norm and his white wife of 68 years old is exactly the people that we're reaching. And he was just our cheerleader. That's how you build this organically. I was so touched.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I've got chills if you can see on my arms right now. What I'm going to push the both of you on is let's figure out a way to build the infrastructure that those types of stories are being captured and that you are sharing them on the platforms that have consumers' attention. You mentioned TikTok taking over Instagram. I think a goal for Us United in 2022 is how can we get more of those stories on your TikTok, and because it will, I know that platform, it will reach an enormous amount of people. And so that's my homework for you guys coming off this call and I'm happy to have conversations offline about all right, hey, how do we actually go do that? But those are the types of things that I just know with the organic reach that is happening, the distribution that's happening on TikTok, those types of stories are what is needed to kind of fuel the message you're trying to put out.
Beautiful.
You're right. My 20-year-old and my 17-year-old tell me that every week at dinner. And I know that and I think it's actually on the drawing board, but I would love to work with you on that out of this and pick your brain a little more and figure out how we accelerate that.
Absolutely. One thing I want to ask about, and we talked about it at the top, was, you guys are at the stage where unity as a intangible concept that I think a lot of people can nod along with. How are you guys thinking about what is the call to action that you want to give people to take? As you're starting to form and build out this as a platform, how do you get someone to actually care about the cause that they take action?
I love that question, and Chris and I are both smiling because we have a new program, a new idea that we're testing now that we're going to roll out. So you're going to be one of the first people to hear about it. So love your reaction, in fact, of whether you think we're onto something. So we've come up, and Chris mentioned it earlier, we're going to roll out something called 30 for Us. And it gets to answering the question I posed early on. What can Mickey do? You had me at Unity. What can I do? So here's what you can do. You can take 30 for Us. And what that means is once a month, call it first Thursday of every month at 4:00, we're going to suggest take 30 minutes for Unity. And here's how you do it. Go to Starbucks, as an example, have a coffee, and there'll be some tables set aside with a bunch of people in your community with a prompt topic from us to say, hey, let's talk about what is it you're most excited about in America in the next year, and see where there's commonality, right? Just talk with people you don't know. Break out of, we all live in these separate bubbles, right? Based on age and race and money and religion and politics. And then social media just reinforces the same thing. So you know what? Break out of that. Go have a coffee once a month for 30 minutes with some people you don't know. Here's a topic. Go join our Google Meet or our Zoom or whatever tech platform we use. And you're going to randomly find yourself in a room with 5 other Americans. You're going to have Chris from Detroit and Adam from LA and Mickey from New York and Jane from Miami and Sarah from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And same prompt, talk to each other. Take 30 minutes and just talk to each other. And then the third one, if you can't do any of those, you're busy. Hey, look, we're going to have Chris and Ken are going to lead a big sort of town hall and you might randomly be in their audience to get to ask questions, but then we'll release that as a podcast. And there'll be a 30 for Us kind of podcast tied into Black and Blue. And every month, if you can't do it yourself, listen for 30 minutes to Chris's story of Norm and hear ideas and hear people coming together. If every American took 30 minutes once a month, 0.0001% of the minutes in a month of your life, and took 30 minutes for unity, I think we start to change this country. And I think that's an easy ask to say, here's how you do it. Just give me 30 minutes once a month. So that's our newest project. We're rolling. We're testing in a bunch of ways to get the format right, but that's what's coming.
Here's what's going to happen after that, because Us United site has, an endless amount of to-dos, random acts of kindness. So when you go out and serve somebody, I say this all the time, who doesn't look like you, live where you live, or worship the way you worship, if you go and serve somebody that normally would be divided, it starts to build those relationships and those trusts. We're trying to repair hundreds of years and countless events of distrust. It's going to start with a conversation, and then Mickey, Adam, and Chris are going to go, hey, let's do something crazy and go stand on the corner and just give people gift cards to Starbucks because they're one of our Us United chapter sponsors. Let's go over, because Gary Vaynerchuk just donated $100,000 to go give Subway gift cards to people in hospitals, because I've never been into a hospital. I've never been into an AFC home. Let's go into a community I've never been and tap into people and just say, hey, we want to serve you. That's the change agent right there. Again, I'm not trying to compare us to Martin Luther King, trust me. But what he did is he ignited action. We don't need to map out what action looks like for everybody, but we can ignite action.
Well, I love the prompt too. I mean, the branding of 30 for Us is tied in so well, and it ties into what the ask is, right? Like, can you take 30 minutes for the community? Can you take 30 minutes to learn about something that's outside your day-to-day, outside your bubble, and talk about topics that aren't talked about on a day-to-day basis, or aren't talked about constructively on social media in 140, 280 characters, those types of things. So I love the framing. I think it's a strong call to action, and I think it's to Adam, it answers that question of what can I, the individual, do that's actually going to start, and having the prompt there, so having it be kind of programmed that way, I love. I want to maybe talk a little bit, go from the philosophical a little bit to the tactical, and just hear from both of you. You've got a wealth of experience outside of the nonprofit world. What have you learned? What from your past entrepreneurial professional experiences prepared you to kind of start and run Us United, and what are you kind of learning on the job? Maybe Adam, we'll start with you.
Sure. Well, I think most of my career has been in, as you said, for-profit world. I was a professional investor for 20 years, and then I've run a series of companies, public and private. So I've been a business person and an investor, and always an entrepreneur. I've started a lot of things, and building Us United, it's no different. It's a business. I mean, yes, we're not out trying to sell sneakers and T-shirts to make a profit. So in that sense, it's different. But the keys to success in building a business, the right people, the right brand, the right marketing, fiscal discipline, strategic planning, all of the elements the right investors, or in our case, donors, the right partners, all of those are the same, whether it's a for-profit or a not-for-profit. And I think that experience set that I bring is relatively unique in the not-for-profit world. And that's where I think I can make a difference by saying, hey, I know how to build things and I know how to make them work. I'm going to do that. And I think if we do that well, we will succeed. And that's where the ideas are coming from. That's where all of our efforts are coming from. And we methodically go after them in that way. And so for me, I think they're one and the same. Yes, there's some different approaches. And I've noticed it where when I'm talking to people, some things are easier because I'm not asking them to be a customer and help me make money. I'm asking them to make a donation or give their time to something that's a cause that can make the country and the world a better place. You get a lot more conversations and a lot more people willing to talk to you about it. but then you have to convince them why you're going to succeed. And that's the same thing. And that's hard. That's the same in any business. And so and I'll turn it to Chris because he runs a big business and he's an officer. He's a lot of things. And that experience is invaluable.
Thanks, Adam. And I think my superpower is I can build relationships with anybody, and I have a gift of communication. And when you execute both of those together, you inspire people to take action. And that's how, as a police commander, I oversee a huge police department. So I understand you can't just talk it. You got to go out there and show it. And so the ability for me to be in law enforcement and to run businesses and start them and sell them and buy them back, I have a unique quality because, if business ran like government, every business would be bankrupt because government screws things up, but to have the business background and be in government, I'm a unicorn. Now, add to that other people that want to change. The biggest frustration I have is people who want to do something and then they do nothing when you put it at their lap. And so what we need to agree on is if we're hitting on things that are important, then challenge yourself to take action because we have a great idea. We have a great concept. We have a great rollout plan, but it's got to be sustainable. And it can't be just a couple people. It's got to be a force multiplier.
Love that. No, I think that the perspectives you guys bring are super refreshing in kind of the nonprofit space, but also, I think break down that it's it is possible to kind of build a platform like that and make it work. So kind of last question I have for you guys, we call this podcast Building While Flying because it's, we understand kind of how important it is to keep calm under pressure. And I'm sure, Chris, this is your life. So maybe we'll start with you, but Adam would love to hear your perspective as well. When you're faced with a tough decision, your back's against the wall, what's that internal kind of pilot's checklist, so to speak, or process that helps you kind of arrive to the appropriate path?
All right, Mickey, best question of the podcast. So this is going to apply to every part of your life, every part of your listener's life. When your backup is against the wall, no matter what the circumstance, make a decision that will give you peace. Let peace be your compass. When you have a peace about the decision you make, a peace about the person you're with, a peace about the place that you're existing in, if you have an internal peace, you don't have any consternation. You don't have any turmoil. You're not upset. It doesn't matter if bullets are flying. That's where you're supposed to be. That's what you're supposed to say. That's who you're supposed to be with. Trust me, I'm not to be a martyr, but it was a 50-50 shot that when I walked into the crowd and I said, "What do you want?" that it would have gone well. But I had a peace about it. It allows you to do things that you would never do, lift cars, scale buildings, and move mountains. Let peace be your compass.
I would have said almost the same thing, and we totally unrehearsed in that. For me, in those moments, you've got to get to sort of that meditative state and slow everything down. I'd make an athletic metaphor. If you ask Tom Brady, Derek Jeter, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, doesn't matter. You ask any of the greats, Serena Williams, what do they tell you? When they're in the biggest matches of their life, number one, they think of it just like practice. Number two, they don't even hear the crowd. They just tune it all out and they get into that peaceful meditative state and they laser focus on slow everything down. And it's just like any other moment and any other day and any other time I'm hitting the ball or I'm throwing the ball. And that's why they're great. And so for me, that's the same thing, which is the bigger the pressure, the bigger the stress. And this has been throughout my career. I tune it out, I slow it down, and I just see and focus on that thing in front of me that I have to focus on just like any other day.
Love that so much. Thank you guys for your time. Thank you for what you're doing with Us United. Send my thanks to Ken and the inspiration that he has brought to the group as well. And super excited to get to know you guys and let you share some of your wisdom with our audience.